Tonight I'm going to be doing a different type of table setting presentation. My objective in doing it is to show you how to use glass you already have, or with just adding a few pieces, have some versatility in your collection. A lot of our members collect to create a beautiful, perfect table setting or collection of a certain glass, or they collect to complete pieces that they receive from their family or to resell. I purchase glass to use it, and it's sort of my philosophy that if I have it in a box, I don't really have it. So I store my glass in cabinets in the garage and in the basement. I buy break fronts or china cabinets for a few dollars at the Salvation Army or other places so that I can see the glass. Even though it gets dusty or whatever in storage, I can see it and I can use it. What I'm going to do today is focus on some red glass that has been in my family. Also, I would like to show you some of the things that I've used every year when I have a Valentine brunch. In fact, that's how I got involved in this tonight. I invited Maureen Armstrong to a brunch and she liked the glass. So here we go. I'm going to begin with Royal Ruby. In another part of this presentation, you'll see how it came to be in my family. As I said before, Royal Ruby is going to be one of the spotlight glass brands that names that we're going to do today, mainly because it's February. And I own this glass, or I should say my daughter owns it, but it resides here at my house. My mother bought it, and I like using it in many different ways. Royal Ruby was the first mass-produced red glass. Although red glass has always been a favorite, the mass production of it in 1938 made it a favorite. And when it became a favorite, they produced more of it. It was more affordable to the masses, and it could be purchased in dime stores, hardware stores, later even discount stores like Kmart or whatever hardware stores. I remember specifically dime stores. This is the basic form of Royal Ruby, and if you look at it, and one of the things I do want to point out though is this cup. This was one of the first cups, and it has a flat bottom. It seems this is the only flat bottom cup that I have. The others, and let me grab a different one. The others have this little pedestal on them, and so really they are punch cups. The coffee cups originally, and I'm thinking that one of the reasons why there aren't so many of them is people really use them for coffee and they broke. Where punch cups, we use punch very often, so there are a lot of punch cups around. Also, the cup styles changed later after the war. Royal Ruby used copper in the composition. There are a lot of stories about red ingredients in red glass, and that's a whole program in itself. But suffice to say that copper was a new ingredient, and it did result in a very dark ruby color, hence the color. And also the ruby color was one of the first colors ever to get a patent. And if you look at the difference between this glass, which is probably Cambridge, and the Royal Ruby, you'll see that there's more of a translucence to this glass, probably a better quality glass since it was in the more luxury line. And then these aren't quite, they're more opaque, they're darker in ruby color. This particular style, and I'm sorry I can't remember the name of it today, the shape is iconic to royal ruby, but also if you look at it, you will find in older houses or in antique shops or places around where you see chandeliers or light fixtures, you can even find single bulbs with the shade of this shape, this anchor hocking iconic shape. These were some of the ones that my mother did have. When I collect glass, I collect it to use. I collect pieces that are used when I entertain. One of the things that I do when I entertain is I usually have, my family does blessings over wine, and so we use the small little cordials. And this anchor hocking had a small little cordial, and it's one of the things I collected. They aren't easy to find. I have just a couple of them. There are lots of shapes and lots of companies reproduce things. Some of these might not be exactly anchor hocking royal ruby, but they're as close as I could get. And really, as I said before, I'm not a purist. I really say that I'm picky. I look for things because I'm picky, not perfect. If it's perfect, that's nice, but I almost don't even mind a tiny little clouding or a little scratch, because then I don't feel quite so guilty using it in case something might happen to it. This is one of the actual sherbets, one of the original sherbets with the little knots, and there also was a water goblet that had the same markings. Okay, that's the main set that I want to talk about. But then, in order to use this in a lot of ways, and I use others of my glass, I've begun to use a blending. One of the ways that I extend my glass is to use simple patterns, mainly Fostoria American, because it's beautiful when it's amassed like this. And frankly, I started picking up a few pieces, like the water glasses, because they were relatively inexpensive, and it's a shame how inexpensive they've become, because this is really incredible glass that really they began manufacturing it in 1915. And I think all the way to like 1987, they were still producing. This is an example, these two placings are an example of intertwining two different patterns. Unless you look very closely, you don't realize actually that you have two different patterns. They're mixed. In this case, I also wanted to show a Cambridge Georgian tumbler. They're usually pretty easy to find, and they come in many, many colors. Very sturdy. I included this place setting mainly just, I thought it was beautiful, and it was red and white, and I thought it would be fun to put it on and show a couple other interesting things that I've learned. One is about this basket, which is a Westmoreland basket, but the little painting on it is done by Mary Gregory, an artist who did many baskets and items of elegant glass with her little paintings. My mother always liked the ruby flash glass. It's expensive, and it more expensive than other things, and it also damages, so really finding pieces that are wonderful are difficult. When I first began collecting depression glass, I couldn't decide what I liked. I just had a few pieces from my family, and so I decided to just make a place setting of a color or a pattern, and I just bought different pieces. So one of the things I did, I thought, oh, this is nice. It has flash glass and it's pretty. So, oh, this must go. Oh, this isn't quite exactly that pattern. What is it? So this is Whitehall, This is a very inexpensive Ruby Flash Sherbet by Colony Glass. But, you know, for my purposes of just putting together a place setting that kind of looked alike, it worked for me. I was really pleased when I realized that some of the pieces that I bought were Tiffin glass. I thought they were very special. The Tiffin King's Crown has an oval as opposed to some of the other things that have circles. And the Tiffins have the oval glass. And this is just a piece of elegant stained glass that seemed to go with it. I do believe that this is a Cambridge piece. And again, you can see the difference in the high quality of this glass as opposed to some of the other red glass that we've seen today. And then once you start getting one thing, you know how it is, you pick up others. And I found this beautiful bowl. And if you ever want to see something gorgeous, by just putting a couple pounds of grocery store potato salad in something, there's your bowl. It's amazing. Okay, now I'm going to move to another pattern that I just put in because I thought it went nicely with our red and white theme. This pattern that I'm going to mention here is Moonstone, and it's another anchor hocking pattern, although I think the basket is probably Fenton. I chose to put the Moonstone on top of another Royal Ruby pattern called Charm. And Charm came out in the 50s. It does have that sort of 50s look. And I love these plates. And Carolyn, if you can pan this way, you can see that I have some other plates in the plate rack that are square. I love square plates. They look great on white, either in this direction or this direction. I kind of like them, kind of a diamond. And they do show off things very well. The other thing that I collect when I collect place settings to use is soup bowls, because my family serves soup as a part of most better meals. How's that? Fancy meals, whatever you want to call it, special meals. And this one happens to be Ruby. It's anchor hocking. They used the same Ruby glass and did a sandwich pattern on it. I think many of us saw these in clear in our parents' kitchens, and we ate cucumbers and stuff out of them. This one happens to be particularly pretty because it's red and goes on this. So this is just the Moonstone that I picked up. And but in showing the Charm, I wanted to show you one other thing, show you two things that anchor hocking had to offer. This Charm also comes in green, and it's often put together for holidays with the green Charm, this dark green, put together with the red, like this. Or I think it looks very pretty to put it with a clear or a milk glass lattice plate that I'll show you in a few minutes. The other thing that I want to show you, that I don't have a red one, a ruby one, to put in my place setting, but this glass is called the Boopy glass. I think because of the little bubbles on the bottom. It comes in ruby and it comes in green, and it was also very common in the 50s. It really does have that 50s look. Okay, this last place setting that I'm going to talk about today is a favorite one of my dear friend Maria Grau, who loaned these pieces to me. She has a massive collection of Westmoreland paneled grape. There are tons of grape patterns out there, but what makes paneled grape especially beautiful is the heavy, heavy impressions on it. And if you look carefully, the grapes do go down. there are many copies. One of the ladies at the Silver Quill showed me that there are some other pieces that when they put them in the mold, they put them in so the grapes are actually growing up, but not Westmoreland. The paneled grape is always beautiful, heavy, very sturdy. I think there's a lot of it because it did stand the test of time. And it's probably a good time to talk about this too. When you look at all of this glass, you can think of the word survivor, because I read an article once that said for every piece that you can see, there are 100 that you can't see and no one will ever see because they're broken. These pieces all stood the test of time for one reason or another. A lot of the elegant glass, Cambridge and some of the other pieces, stood the test of time because they were in china cabinets. People babied them. But most of the glass that you're seeing on this table today is common glass. I mean, people use these pieces and they still are here. So even if they weren't used every day, they were used for Sundays or often enough so that they were of value to the families that owned them. Now, one of the things about the paneled grape is it is kind of fussy. I like that about it, but I think there are ways to make the paneled grape not quite so fussy. And that is to add other colors to it. And I thought it would be kind of nice to put these little bride and groom pieces with it to show that with a little bit of black and a little bit of gingham, you can kind of tone it down and give it a little more, anyway, the checks do give it more of a modern look. And by having that white in your repertoire of glass, you can mix it with red or anything else. Okay, I thought we probably should take a look at the whole table. So even though we have the various things we're going to spotlight, I did set the middle of the table. I often see ice buckets in patterns, and I never use an ice bucket like they use like they were intended to be used. We don't do the cocktails with ice in the buckets, like the Mad Men kind of cocktails. But I do use them for other things, and today I just used them to hold a regular grocery store flour. That's why I keep going. And by putting it in there, it works very well. The other one, there's another pressed glass one over there. This one happens to be American. Then the next thing, a good time to show this. When I think Indiana glass, I'm sorry, but I usually think of pretty common clear glass for some reason. I don't know, but I was at the Tablesetting Antique Mart about a year ago, and they had a setup for Christmas. And they had green and red glass with these candle holders in the middle. I did not need them, and whoever bought something that they needed, I don't know. But I just could not, they were just so gorgeous. So I purchased them and figured I'll do something with them. They've never really been tall enough to fit in my tablescapes. So I do put one of my favorite tricks. This is the bottom of a paneled grape punch bowl. And I don't know why, but I seem to have 3 of these in my collection. Could be used in a bowl, as a bowl, or as a base like it was a candle. So you can put almost anything on top of these things. You can put another color, but I chose to just set these Indiana glass. And these are number 305 2 light candlesticks, and they were originally made in crystal, and then sometime in the 50s they took the mold and made them in milk glass. Now you can also see what I also do with candle holders, because really this table and the tables that I do for my Valentine brunches and lunches our daytime. So really using candles is kind of silly. But if you have the candle holders, you probably ought to figure out another way to use them. And I'll show you in a minute a couple of my other tricks. Now going to the middle, on the bottom, a lot of this milk glass that you'll see is not the highest grade. It is rather porous, whatever. Then there is the elegant glass, milk glass, and this is a piece of Cambridge Doric. You can see the shine in it. If you pick it up, you can feel the difference in your hands. Also sitting on top of that plate is a Fostoria trophy bowl. It was a gift to me from one of my club members who came to lunch, and I just love it. It makes everything look great, and then of course you can put anything in it. Someone told, a Chaldean friend of mine told me that it's a saying that if something looks good every place, you call it a tomato, because if you put a tomato on anything, it makes it look wonderful. Well, that's why I feel about that bowl. It's like a tomato. No matter what you do with it, it looks fabulous. These candle holders, something else that I had, and they're red, and I bought them thinking they were Dunkin' or something. I was even told that they were, but I had one of those ahas with these candle holders. I discovered that they really are Mount Vernon number 35 Carmen Red Cambridge candle holders, and they're worth way more than I paid for them, which is always like the best kind of antique to find out is in your collection. Even though that's not usually my purpose, it's always kind of fun. Now let me show you about the candle holders. I use candle holders, like I say, sometimes you just need to use them, even though you don't want candles. One of the things that I use on my brown ones, these are a little collection that I have of wild turkey containers. They are little bottles, and you can find them in antique stores. They look really cool on amber colored candle holders sitting among fall things. Another thing with the clear, I do have a little collection of these little Avon perfume bottles, and they look fabulous with the milk glass or clear. They look kind of sparkly, but you can see how, now it is dangerous kind of to put these glass things in. You can see how my little doves, which I didn't really buy purposely for table decorations. I bought them to use for a relative's shower, but of course she didn't want them for her shower, so I still have them, and they've worked beautifully for my Valentine vignettes. So it's kind of dangerous to put things that you really love on top, even little bowls or cups or something that would have flowers in them, or something draping over the side. So you can buy sticky wax to use to not permanently, but temporarily hold them steady, or a jar of museum wax. And this comes with a little stick. You can take it and put it on, and it holds things temporarily. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed putting it together. I can't say that it only took me a minute to do it, but it's another way to do what my friend Maria Brow calls play glass. She always tells people, some people play dolls, but Joan plays glass. And it's not something that I did my whole life. I just started doing it a few years ago. I told a friend I wanted to have a hobby that had really no meaningful value. I was tired of volunteering and working. And she said, I have just the thing for you. And from then, I have been involved with the glass. So thank you very much.